What strange events have gotten swept under the rug like they didn't even happen? Starting last summer, there have been unidentified snipers taking out random cars on different parts of I-10 in New Orleans, and nothing has come of it, and nobody's really talking about it. I mean, gang and drug violence, neighborhood drive-bys, and the occasional bourbon shooting are one thing to ignore, but interstate snipers? Nobody finds that interesting? It's still happening. In 2020, New Orleans saw an average of 2 interstate shootings per month, and on January 12, a news release from the New Orleans Police Department detailed more than 30 interstate shootings in the Crescent City in 2021. 6 days later, they added 4 more victims to their list. Just before 3 p.m. on January 18, a Tuesday, a sniper killed 34-year-old Whitney Watts as she traveled eastbound on Interstate 10. Police realized something was amiss when the victim's black car crashed into a guardrail at the Crowder Boulevard exit in New Orleans East. The coroner found Whitney's assailant shot her multiple times. Earlier that morning, another I-10 gunshot hit a man on Michoud Boulevard, and the Saturday morning before that, January 15, the interstate sniper killed a 52-year-old man and wounded a 45-year-old woman on I-10 at Esplanade Avenue. Ironically, the United States' most infamous highway snipers killed only 7 people, far less than the multitude of attacks recounted here. If NOPD can connect even half of these shootings, the wound count of this new I-10 sniper surpasses that of the DC Beltway snipers. What the duck? It's got to be the rate at which people are being killed, cause when the DC snipers went on their rampage, it was all the news would talk about. The DC snipers sent ransom demands to the press, demanding millions to stop. I assume these people have not been communicating. Whenever people demand ransom like this, I always wonder where they expect the authorities to deliver the money to and in which method without the assailants themselves being revealed. A British extortionist figured out an angle on picking up ransom money a couple decades ago. He went to 7 or 8 banks and set up accounts with ATM cards under false names. Then he waited a few years until there was no possibility that any of the tellers would recall what he looked like. Then he poisoned baby food and pet food and put it on store shelves and notified the manufacturers where it was. He demanded money to stop doing it. He demanded that the ransom be paid into the aforementioned bank accounts, and he would drive around the county doing quick withdrawals, while wearing a motorcycle helmet to avoid camera identification, and disappearing before the cops would show up. There were far too many ATMs for the police to watch all of them at once. His main problem was that there was only a limited amount of cash that you could get out on an ATM at one time, and some of the cards had been closed for account inactivity between when he set them up and when he ran his scheme. He eventually got lazy and started doing his pickups closer and closer to home and ended up getting caught. From the last time this was asked, Equifax lost the personal data of almost every single adult in the U.S. This is data we didn't give them permission to access, they simply automatically collect it. They are still in business. In September of 2017, Equifax announced a data breach that exposed the personal information of 147 million people. That's out of roughly 210 million adults at that time. That's 70% of the adult population whose data was lost. That's more than likely every single household in the U.S. On November 2, the FEC decided that foreign individuals, corporations, and governments can fund ballot measures in the U.S. because they're not technically elections. This is a staggeringly big deal that was pretty much immediately swept under the rug. I mean, they let Zuckerberg drop absolute bank on funding ballot measures operations, over $420 million, and ongoing investigations are looking into its influence illegality. Either open it up so we have shitty elections, or shut down outside funding so we don't have billionaires trying to sway different electorates. In my hometown there was some sort of audit and it found that $8 million of taxpayer money was missing. It's a conspiracy now. Edit, all the Reddit attention got me interested in this situation again. Here's a link. XWO.com $7 million spent on life insurance policies for employees. Where I live, a very well-known green and gold tractor company stuck their multi-million-dollar expansion tax bill on the people of the small town. And they got away with it. My taxes went up $800 that year and only went down $300 the next. I hate that green and gold tractor company. If people only knew how scummy that company really is. Edit to add, thank you for all your upvotes. I made this comment at 3 a.m. never thinking it would go anywhere. I did not name John Deere outright because they just annoy me for many reasons. This happened in Horicon. Their founding town. This town is so deeply run by them it's gross. The taxes are outrageous for a town that has nothing. They block a lot of potential growth. Everyone thinks they are such a good company, but they are far from. They are only good if it's for their own gain. This reminds me of the time the US government gave a few internet providers an aston of taxpayer dollars to expand internet infrastructure and quality, and they just kinda kept it. A link for those interested, newNetworks.com. Edit. Thanks for all the replies. It's almost like we need to hold our representatives and the thieves that steal from us accountable, isn't it? Did it twice. Tried to do it again a few years back. T.I., rapper, and his wife have serially drugged and raped over 30 victims. According to 30-plus allegations. If you Google T.I., it doesn't even come up unless you specifically search for it. Haven't heard about this, but it's not far-fetched. The same creep who bragged about routinely getting his daughter's hymen checked to ensure she's still a virgin. That poor girl, if they proudly made that public, I don't want to even think about what secrets they keep private. Not just getting it checked, but going with her to do it, and continued to do so at least until she was 18 years old. Asked on the Ladies Like Us podcast about sex education for his children, he said, "Not only have we had the conversation, we have yearly trips to the gynecologist to check her hymen. Yes, I go with her. I will say, as of her 18th birthday, her hymen is still intact." He acknowledged a woman's hymen can be broken outside of sexual activity, but countered by saying, "So then they come and say, well, I just want you to know that there are other ways besides sex that the hymen can be broken, like bike riding, athletics, horseback riding, and just other forms of athletic physical activity." So I say, "Look, doc, she don't ride no horses, she don't ride no bike, she don't play no sports. Just check the hymen, please, and give me back my results expeditiously." TheGuardian.com. Such a creepy, possessive ducker. What the duck? I remember hearing about the whole hymen thing years back and thinking to myself it was only a matter of time before this dude Cosby's himself. The leader of Scientology's wife vanished after an argument in 2005. Nobody knows what happened to her. Just sign this waiver, saying that you have seen Debbie Stovelman, and that she is happy, healthy, and alive. Edit. It's an affidavit, not a waiver, but the joke still stands. Boom boom. In my hometown, the police chief was accused of having sexual relations with an underage girl. The father of the girl was one of the officers on the force. He was later found dead near the property of the chief. People believe he was there to confront the chief about the relations. 9/11 happened, and the attention of the public got focused on the nation's tragedy. He is now the mayor. This sounds awfully like Fresno. Was thinking the same thing. Even has 559 in his username. The Metcalf sniper attack. Some unknown gunman utilizing military tactics attacked a California power substation under cover of night. The attack included cutting targeted telecommunication lines beforehand. As far as I've ever been able to tell, they never figured out who did it or why. Or they did make arrests and the media didn't bother to follow up. 60 Minutes just did a story on this, in the context of a larger vulnerability to the power grid. Apparently destroying as few as 5 substations could cripple the entire grid. That is true but also misleading. It would have to be the 5 specific substations, in the right order, at the right time with the proper timing between them. Nothing works very well if you systematically attack each backup failsafe as it comes online. For comparison, it's a bit like saying taking out power to a hospital is easy. All you have to do is kill the mains power at the transformer, then while it's switching to the backup substation short circuit that, then when the generator starts spooling up you kill the transfer switch, and then all you have to do is disconnect the battery room and boom, lights out. Ghislaine Maxwell knew many names, yet no one was publicly mentioned. It came out in her trial that the FBI lost a ton of the evidence taken from the Epstein Mansion raid, which included tons of DVDs. And that was just a footnote in the trial. 20th person to respond with "lost" in quotation marks wins a prize. Panama Papers. And now again with the Pandora Papers. And the Paradise Papers. The wife of the Church of Scientology leader, David Miscavige, Shelley Miscavige, has not been seen in public since August 2007. She was reported as missing to the police at that time, but they said that she had been found and they closed the case. She has not been seen since. After 15 years of no contact or sightings, it's hard to believe she's alive. Scientology would have the resources to lock her up for that long of a period. It's certainly plausible. They have a ship, seems like a good place to hide someone. Wikipedia, Allegations of abuse on board. In 2011, former Sea Org member Valeska Paris reported that she had been imprisoned on board Freewinds to prevent her from leaving Scientology, after joining at age 14. Once she was taken to the ship, expecting to be on board 2 weeks, Paris said her passport was taken from her, after which she was held against her will, forced into manual labor for 12 years, and unable to leave the ship without an escort for 6 years. Her story was corroborated by a former Sea Org member who said Valeska made it very clear she did not want to be there. She had been sent to the ship so as not to be in contact with one of her parents, and that's not what she wanted. She was very, very distressed. The Church of Scientology has denied the claims.